Many of you guessed correctly that the third game I got to try in virtual reality was Doom. So, what was it like to get up close and personal and gore kill a demon? I have been a big fan of ID Software pretty much from the start, going back to Wolfenstein 3D, Commander Keen and those sort of games. But Doom, well, Doom just blew me away. You have to remember what games were like at the time, and when Doom was released, not only was it an amazing sort of business model where they released a third of the game in its entirety as shareware on pretty much every PC gaming mag out there. This game was incredible. I mean, it blew the competition away. It pretty much set the template for first-person shooters at the time. And I remember thinking that it felt so real. I mean, I was saying to myself, I'm not sure it could get any more real than this. That's where we were in those days. And for me, years later, to be playing Doom again, but this time in virtual reality, well, it's a fairly amazing experience. Please note the footage you are seeing on screen is not from the VR experience. We weren't allowed to actually record game footage, and to be honest, it's probably not something I would have put on the video anyway. It's usually very difficult to watch, kind of nauseating, and I imagine a game as fast-paced as Doom would be even worse, so it's just the normal game. However, let me just say, whilst watching someone play VR might be slightly unpleasant, playing Doom in VR was not. It felt great the instant I started playing. I can't explain it, but it was hands down the best VR experience I have ever had. I'm not sure if it's because they built this engine from scratch just for the VR version of the game, or if it's because the content itself lends itself better to a VR experience. The models on the monsters are far simpler. They're more of a caricature. You can look at them from a distance and instantaneously recognize them. And perhaps this simplicity, this emphasis on interesting shapes rather than on texture details, means you don't focus on the fact that it's a low resolution experience. And the weapons, the gunplay was great. I mean, they really were unbelievably precise and accurate in your hands. Wherever I held my hand, the gun was there. There was never an instant where it was moving or slightly off. It was always exactly where I wanted it to be. So when I was shooting at things, I didn't have to think. I was working on pure instinct and just shooting non-stop at these demons, switching between weapons, the plasma rifle, the shotgun, the minigun. It was great. It felt amazing. The only thing I would say is there's something a bit strange about holding this massive plasma rifle and it being pretty light in your hands. That is something that VR is not going to be able to fix easily. I kind of feel like what I actually want is an actual gun model in my hand. I imagine there's going to be a bit of a thriving business one day for controllers that actually feel a bit more like a gun so you can hold them. I'm interested to see how that will develop, but that's the one thing. That's how good the gunplay felt. It felt so realistic and so good that I found myself wanting to support the weapon with my second hand. I wanted to do that. But of course, the big question is, how is the movement? Doom is a very fast game. You move really fast, you're double jumping all over the place, climbing. I mean, it really is a game about the movement, and that is the major weakness in VR. Well, in actual fact, they've done a really good job with the movement, but they've done it by changing the character you play. You're not playing the Doom Marine, you're playing an AI that takes control of certain robots, armoured robot suits. And that may sound strange, but it gives them a bit of leeway with how you do the movement. And the movement is done by dashing. And what I mean by that is you've got your controller and you press the forward button, and instead of moving slowly forward or sprinting super fast forward as you would in Doom, and thus probably inducing copious quantities of nausea, you kind of jump forward. It's like you've just lunged with a sword at them a few meters, and you can do it really quickly. It's just like, so you're just hopping forward, but you can also jump back like you're dodging a blow, or to the side like you're sidestepping. It's the sort of movement many people who play combat games will probably recognise. It's something you'll do in combat. Well, that's how you move, and it's insanely fast. And it feels like you're dashing forward. It doesn't feel like a teleport, but there's no nausea. I'm not sure how they did it. I really am not. Again, perhaps it's because I was stood up, or perhaps they've just figured out the motion, the level of momentum you want, and the complete lack of head bobbing. It just feels really smooth, and within a couple of minutes I'd stopped thinking about it, and I was just sidestepping, moving backwards and forwards, shooting demons, and of course I had full 360-degree turning capabilities, so I could turn, and it was pretty much exactly as it was in, say, Fallout 4 with the normal movement control, but instead of smooth movements you just kept sidestepping or jumping forward. It felt fine. One of the big problems in VR is going to be how you handle things like jumping and climbing, because that's kind of difficult to do in a VR experience. It's one thing to just move backwards and forwards, but if you're jumping, what happens? Your character jumps and the entire world below you disappears. I can imagine jumping in a VR game while you're stood on the ground is going to be a little problematic. So what they've done in this game is they've also given you the teleport movement, so you have both movement types. And you press a certain button and it slows down time quite a lot, and you can look at a ledge that you want to climb up, or if you've got to jump a chasm, you can point to the other side with this beam. It's a curved beam, it's like you're throwing a ball, and you release it and you teleport there. It takes a little getting used to, and by a little I mean about a minute. And then all of a sudden you start using it without thinking. You know, you're dashing backwards and forwards, you're shooting them, you see a ledge, you slow down time very briefly, you flick up onto the ledge, you're moving across the ledge, you're shooting, and it feels great. It feels unbelievably high octane, and you end up using this teleport function in combat as well as just to get to ledges. If you see like a rocket fly in towards you, you can sidestep it, but you might not know what's there. So what you'll do is you'll hit this button, you'll turn, and then you'll see if there's someone there, and then do the teleport. So you get a kind of bullet time effect as well. And you can use all of these tools to wreak mayhem. That doesn't make it easy. Believe it or not, it was probably harder playing the VR game than the normal game. There were enemies all over the place, and I really was having to concentrate and constantly spin my head to find them all and jib them all. Oh, and that reminds me, the Gore kills. You can Gore kill in this game, and again you use the same teleport movement that I've just talked about. Once some creature is ready for a Gore kill, you just move the teleport onto them and release, and you fly forward and Gore kill them up close and personal. It's pretty messy and pretty fulfilling. After just a few minutes, I was completely engrossed in battling the Lords of Hell and was paying no attention actually to how I was doing it. It became second nature so quickly. They've done such a good job with the movement, with the controls, that I just was not thinking about it. I was concentrating on not dying and killing demons. When my session came to an end, I was massively disappointed. I did not want to stop playing. I felt no nausea, I felt no dizziness at all, and I'll point out, I played this after I'd had an incident with the Fallout 4 VR that caused me a bit of nausea that made me go off and sit down and eat for half an hour to settle my stomach. So I was probably pretty sensitive and vulnerable to any such problems, and I had none of that in Doom. So it's all great news, right? Well, not quite. There was one thing that got under my skin, but it wasn't something that was a problem of the game, it was a problem of the technology of the Vive itself, and it was the problem of the wire. Doom is such a fast-paced game. You want to be turning constantly. You want to be spinning and ducking, and you really want the freedom to move, and you keep stepping on the wire if it's below you, or perhaps wrapping it around your neck, and just it gets tangled, and it's a little annoying. You start getting used to spinning in different directions constantly, so sometimes even though you'd want to turn to the left, you'd actually turn to the right and go a bit further because you knew the wire was wrapped around you and that was the best way to do it. It did ruin the experience a little because, of course, it's a constant reminder that you're stood in a dark room looking like a complete idiot rather than actually battling demons. This tells me that, again, this sort of game, whilst it's a great game to play, it needs VR to move in a certain direction, and of course that direction is wireless headsets. But those are being developed. They have showcased the technology now, and that is what needs to happen. For a standing VR experience, I think wireless headsets are an absolute must. They need to be made. But once they do, games like Doom are just going to be brilliant to play. There is a difference between playing the VR version and the normal version, and a lot of hardcore FPS gamers are not going to like the dash movement. That is true, but a lot of people are not going to care. Being able to stand in the pits of hell and destroy demons that are right in front of your face and feel like they're breathing down your neck is going to appeal to some people. It really is, myself included. I mean, I love FPS games. I love playing them seated, but I did enjoy that. I really enjoyed the Doom VR experience, probably more than is reasonable for a middle-aged old man. I mean, I felt like the Doom Marine, but I probably looked like a complete idiot waving his arms around in the air. You know what else you're going to need apart from a wireless headset for VR? A thick set of curtains. However, the million-dollar question, or in fact the several $100 question, is should I buy Doom VFR and should I buy a VR headset if I don't already own one? And I'd have to say at the moment I would caution you to wait. Even if you already own a Vive, you should probably wait for the reviews. I only experienced the demo. It's a short demo and it gives you a taster, but you want to see what the final reviews for this game are. How much content, how many hours of play, and was it an overall enjoyable experience? However, if you don't own a Vive, if you're thinking of buying such hardware just for this game, you really do need to calm down and go off and try to experience VR for yourself before you take the plunge. Not everybody likes VR. Some people find it nauseating, some people just find it a little boring. Some people don't like the movement, the teleporting or the dash style movement. You may be such a person and you may find you try it and think, well, it was okay, but I'd rather play the 2D game. And if you've already gone ahead and bought a headset, you're going to feel like you wasted your money. I would probably say, unless you have spare cash lying around, wait until VR gets a little cheaper, wait until perhaps we have wireless headsets, and definitely wait until you've seen a lot of reviews made by professional reviewers who have completed the game. Having said that, I really did enjoy my time playing this game, and I'm going to be keeping my eye on this because honestly, this to me is the sign that we're going in the right direction.